Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Michelle Fishburne, and welcome to Pluck and Grit, American Female Entrepreneurs During the Pandemic. And get ready to be inspired, because this is an inspiring group of women. And in order to do this right, I will have some notes so that I don't leave out any of the big nuggets. And I've just returned from a 12,000-mile RV trip all over America. My goal was to interview people about their lives during the pandemic. All sorts of people, as Maria said, yoga instructors, monks, comedians, mayors. Among the people I interviewed were a bunch of female entrepreneurs, and it's an amazing group of women, and I can only highlight a few of them. So, are you guys ready? Come on, let's see some nods. All right, good. All right, so I've made it easy for you to see these women as I'm presenting. So if you, like I said, if you go on my Facebook page, Who We Are Now USA, the most recent link has all the links to their stories, so you can see them while I talk about them. Same thing with LinkedIn, and that's at Who We Are Now. Okay, and so while you're doing that, I want to just review definitions for a minute. The word pluck is not used very much these days, and it means spirited and determined courage. What comes to mind for you? What image during the pandemic of pluck? For me, it's the Italians standing on their balconies, singing and making music during quarantine. Now let's talk about grit. Grit means courage and resolve, strength of character. The image that comes to mind for me is Nicole Brassington, an ICU nurse who, along with 3 other female healthcare workers, decided to start a glamping retreat right before the pandemic. Now, if you're on my Facebook page or LinkedIn, look at that photo of those 4 women, 4 of them. Nicole, an ICU nurse during the pandemic, and 3 other female healthcare workers. And they're standing there like bosses, because they started this glamping retreat. But when I say started, what that means is they had the land, although they hadn't gotten the bank loan for it yet. They had ordered some luxury teepees. They had commissioned tiny cabins to be made out of shipping containers, and that's how they had started. And then the pandemic hit, and so they think about the dollar signs. You've ordered luxury teepees, you've got some land, you've got containers that are being converted. When they went to the bank during the COVID spring, or banks, to get a loan, they all said, "No, are you kidding me? Your hospitality industry, nobody is doing loans to the hospitality industry." In addition to that, the zoning process was delayed. The tiny containers, the tiny houses from the containers, that was delayed. The teepees were being made in the Northwest. That was delayed because of the wildfires. And then when they finally opened up the glamping retreat in the fall of 2020, they had to shut it down immediately because the COVID cases in that state spiked. Grit. Resolve. Or bad judgment? No. Where did the resolve come from? Where did the grit come from? They have an unbelievable idea. This glamping retreat is located right next to an attraction that pre-COVID had 70,000 visitors a month. But the town only has 2 motels and 60 Airbnb units. Right? It's a great idea. So Nicole and her team have hunkered down, knowing that they will be successful when things start getting back to normal. That was a good one to start with, right? Grit. Unbelievable grit. Next up is Anaya. Anaya Gregory, a college student who launched a fashion line during COVID. That's right, during it. And here's what she said, and I'm going to read directly from her words. "I wanted to do something during the pandemic. I'm 21 years old and I couldn't really go anywhere. I wanted to do something that was really impactful and be able to say I did it when I was 21. So I launched an e-commerce retailing business called The Repertoire. I've always wanted to, always, right? 21. I've always wanted to start a clothing line. 2020 was the perfect time for me to sit down and take time to start it. So let's just pause here for a moment. Can you hear the self-confidence in her voice? The command of the vision and the belief in herself is just truly wonderful. And listen to this. The Repertoire's motto is embrace the uncomfortable and walk with purpose. Let me repeat that. Embrace the uncomfortable and walk with purpose. That sure sounds to me like the definition of pluck, spirited and determined courage. And when I asked Anaya why she chose that as the motto, she said, well, it's what I'm doing. I'm embracing the uncomfortable and I'm walking with purpose. Wow. Next up is Christina Wong, a comedian in Los Angeles. She had just launched her first national tour right when COVID hit. She even had gotten rave review from the LA Times and standing ovations. And well, we all know what happened. What happened to the national tour? Canceled. What happened to everything else she was doing? Canceled. So let me describe it in her words. It was really kind of perilous. How am I going to make a living as an artist who tours live if I can't be in front of crowds? You're not going to guess what happened next. She made face masks. Well, you probably could have guessed that. Then she put, well, you're not be able to guess this part. She put face masks out on Facebook and said, whoever wants one, let me know. And she was inundated. And you probably could have guessed that too. Well, what if I told you that she assembled a team of volunteers all over the United States, and together they made and delivered 250,000 masks to vulnerable communities between March and December? Kind of unexpected, right? She went from being a comedian to running a new, built from the ground up, national nonprofit almost overnight. I think the operative word for her is pivot. I know that word's become cliche, but it really fits what Christina did. Also, grit is a great word here. Strength of character, determination. She saw a need. She stepped in without flinching. Frankly, she even stepped in without thinking. And she just had belief in herself. And she was supported by a community of women, mostly women and some men, who shared her view. Let's shift now to Robin. Robin is, for me, the doubling down example. Doubling down during the pandemic. At 60-something, Robin was a successful interior designer and an extremely successful influencer on Instagram. She has almost 70,000 followers. She is a leader in midlife influencing and was hosting a large conference in Atlanta for, you guessed it, the last week of March 2020. So you know what happened to that? It got canceled. And you know what happened to her interior design business? It got canceled. What didn't stop, though, was how many of us were scrolling and scrolling through our phones. And boomers weren't going into stores to shop. In fact, nobody was going into stores to shop. So the boomer brands had to figure out a way to get their products in front of us. So Robin and other midlife influencers have been besieged with collaboration opportunities during the pandemic. And she's made more money in 2020 being an influencer than she did with interior design. Now you're going to say, oh, but Michelle, you said that that was closed down. Well, don't forget, housing really picked up in the summer, and she has houses in Hilton Head, Park City, and Atlanta, and all of those places saw huge booms, and she could have had a great booming business, but chose not to, because she doubled down on this wave that she saw. She took advantage of this wave, and she did it with confidence and looking absolutely fabulous. The next person up is Elizabeth Eisel. She started her business when she was 70 years old. You're probably thinking, oh, Michelle misspoke. No, I'm gonna check my notes. Yeah, she was 70. That was 7 years ago. Elizabeth started the Global Institute for Experienced Entrepreneurship. Her firm belief is those of us 50 plus are an untapped resource for the entire world, and GDPs of countries would actually go up not insignificantly if we were all deployed to continue to do the work that we love and use the skills that we have developed over all these years. So Elizabeth, for the past 7 years, has been trotting across the globe to conferences. The UN's Secretary General had her speak at 2 conferences in 2020, and that was just, 2019, and that was just a few of them. So Elizabeth, though, had a suboptimal situation. She is really excellent at networking in person, and she meets with leaders of governments. She has helped them revise programs and policies to really unleash this talent, but she could not do it over the internet. She did do the Zooms, but one of the things to keep in mind is, and that she keeps in mind, is she says, you know, Michelle, my time is running out. How much longer can I do this? And she is burning to spend all of her time to help those of us who come after her, so that we can have a fruitful, energetic, interesting life throughout our lives if we choose to continue to work. Last up is Marilyn Joy, and that is her last name. And so it's perfect to end with Marilyn. So Marilyn started a barber shop in downtown St. Louis 27 years ago. And when I interviewed her, it was her 67th birthday. And right before COVID, she was about to retire. And she is a single older woman. And during quarantine, she was so bored. And so quarantine taught her, number one, there is no way I am retiring. I will just not even know what to do with myself. Second thing is, she didn't have much money. So in order, if you are an entrepreneur, one of the keys that I have found after interviewing hundreds of them now is every customer is community. A customer is not a customer. A customer is a member of the community. And if you do that, your business will flourish. During the shutdown, she was sent checks and Venmos, etc., from so many of her customers. One guy even sent her half of his stimulus check because they wanted to make sure she was okay. Community and joy in what you're doing. 2 of the secrets of being a great entrepreneur. And that this is a good place to wrap up. And there are more stories on my website, currently over 100, and the website is whowearenow.us. Here are the takeaways. Pluck and grit will get you through. Problem solving by pivoting, doubling down, and confronting suboptimal situations is imperative. Always think of who you are serving as community, not customers. And last thing is, do it with joy. And if you do it with joy, you will have a successful time as an entrepreneur. And that wraps it up.